Y'all, right now I want to talk about the fading of perception. So, perception being what is perceived through the five senses. In Buddhism, they would say the six senses: the seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and the thinking mind to wrap it all together. So, the fading of perception, what does that even mean? That the whole experience of a world and a self can actually fade, and thus drastically liberate us, free us from the conditioning that there is a solid world out there, that I am objectively real. What we see through the fading of perception is that actually the experience of reality, of a world at all, of anything, is dependent on clinging. You can see this at a very gross level. When you cling, you actually create problems. The more you cling, the more problems there are. The more I cling to, I want to feel like this. I like this feeling, I don't like that. I cling to this, and then when my mood swings, I suffer. If I swing from happy to sad and I'm clinging to happy, suffering. You can also see this with clinging to a way you want your life to be. I want my future to look like this. Thus I cling to that, and when it doesn't work out that way, I suffer. Clinging. Or I'm clinging to my youth. I cling to youth, I get old, suffering. I cling to an intimate partner, they leave me, they die, suffering. Clinging leads to suffering, leads to problems. So that's at a very gross level, but also what we find is that clinging, this is what's absolutely crazy. Clinging actually leads to experience. It leads to the sense of a world, a self, all of it. What we take to be real, this place, is a product of clinging to. So this was taught by the Buddha. I heard this from Dharma teacher Rob Burbea. Now I'm just giving a quick synopsis on this because it is mind-blowing. Again, just understanding that this is possible to experience. Anyone can experience this. It changes your whole understanding of reality, of existence. What this is, it frees us from the solidity of life, of us, of thinking this is all we are. When you see that this is a product of this. So, clinging. Again, clinging causes suffering, and clinging causes the world to appear. So we can cling less. And this is not, again, at the level of gross mind, but very subtle levels of clinging. When we cling less, experience starts to fade. And this is through what's called samatha practice. Samatha is entering tranquil, calm, abidings of mind through specific meditation practices, specifically something very simple like focusing on the breath, or loving kindness practice. This encourages these calm abidings for the mind. And when the mind becomes very calm, aligned, relaxed, it's actually fabricating less. This is a term the Buddha used, is fabrication. That problems are fabrication, so is the experience of self and world. So what happens when we enter deep samatha, we hit samadhi, these levels of meditative absorption, where basically the mind is fabricating less. It's like becoming more and more relaxed. The clinging that's so tight, that creates a sense of solidity, gets relaxed. And when it becomes very relaxed, actually you hit the cessation of consciousness, where all consciousness ceases. It's very difficult for the mind to understand what that means, because we always have a reference. In this place there is no such thing. It's ineffable, unspeakable actually. This is simply by meditating. And so the jhanas, these levels of samadhi, there's eight. And the first four are the form jhanas, the rupa jhanas. So you enter into states of ecstasy, bliss, happiness, contentedness, stillness. These are not just mental experiences, these are somatic, full experiences. And these are levels of peace, bliss that you cannot touch in normal life. Because normal life, peace comes like a wave, it comes and goes. And happiness comes and goes. But this, simply by maintaining a certain level of concentration of mind, you can hit this deep somatic happiness anytime you want. This deep somatic peace, contentedness, stillness, anytime, simply by sitting. So how does that change your relationship to chasing happiness? When you can get a much more fulfilling, radical, nourishing sense of happiness simply by sitting in meditation. When you can tap into contentedness and real stillness, just from a fading of the fabrication, simply by clinging less. How does that affect your relationship to this place? So, I've hit probably the second, third jhana consistently enough to see that this is a loosening of clinging and a less and less fabrication of mind. I have not yet hit the formless jhanas, which are the next four. So we have the first four, which is categorized by kind of a rapture, happiness, contentedness, and then stillness. That's the first four jhanas. And then we have the formless. The reason they're called the formless jhanas is because the whole experience of a body fades. Again, this is crazy, very different than what we're used to experiencing, what our conception of reality is. Again, when the mind clings less, fabricates less problems, fabricates not even a body. We see that that's also a fabrication that is a result of clinging. When we cling, we create something to cling to. And the harder we cling, the more reality we create. Again, this is mind-boggling, but you can see this for yourself just with meditation. Again, if you want to look this up, it's called the jhanas, Jhana. I would look up the talk by Robert Bay in particular, but the formless jhanas are characterized by, again, no body, the realm of infinite space, followed by the realm of infinite awareness, the realm of nothingness, and then the realm of neither perception nor non-perception, where the mind is not, I've heard it just is falling. It's not really landing on anything. Whereas the mind is usually landing on, oh, I see my face, I see this calendar, I see, I feel a body, I feel feelings. The mind is landing on something. Here, it's the mind is falling and not landing. Again, very difficult to understand for the mind. Very difficult to wrap your head around. That's just how I've heard it described. I've again yet to experience it. But beyond the formless jhanas is actually, again, the cessation of consciousness. And again, this is almost the ineffable. We can touch that. We can taste that. And at this point, when there's cessation, there is no time. Who are we? What are we when the body fades, when the mind fades, when the world fades, when even time is seen through as a construct, as a fabrication of mind that is a product of clinging? When you experience this, and you go through the fading of perception and then back into the world when the mind clings again, as it does, when you see this, the question is then, what's real? What is real? What is really real? When you see that the world and a self are dependent arisings. They're dependent on clinging. When we cling less, it all disappears. Wow. It's crazy. So again, if you can, let's just examine the first four jhanas. Again, if you can just release clinging and enter into radical, deep, stable, somatic, like a glowing happiness, a resounding contentedness. Again, how does that change your relationship to the world, to sense pleasures, to chasing all these things, thinking it'll give you happiness, when you can just touch into that anytime? And this is not some mystical thing. I mean, it is mystical actually, but it's something that anyone can touch into with practice. Anybody. I've touched into the first three jhanas. I've meditated for like 5 years. And I haven't even known about the jhanas for most of that time. But when you learn about it, it changes things. Because, you're tapping into happiness, contentedness, peace, stillness, and then these more mystical states. Again, this realm of infinite space is apparently characterized by this deep mystical sense of oneness. Tap into that consistently. How does that change your experience? when you have these real, like, again, you've seen it with your own eyes. You don't need to read a book. You don't need to listen to a guru. You have seen it. Again, simply when the mind is not clinging. Fabricating. When we cling, something to cling to appears. Interesting. When we don't cling, nothing's there at deeper and deeper levels. So, the jhanas. This is, I mean, for me, incredibly liberating to just be like, oh, I'm having a bad day. Let me just go home and meditate and just snap into happiness, some contentedness. Just drink that nectar whenever you want. It's not dependent on money. It's not dependent on really anything beyond the state of your mind at a given time. So, again, this is mind-blowing for me, but it's also liberating. Like, deeply liberating. Because you no longer see this place as objectively real. You see it as a product of clinging. And doesn't make it unreal. This is what's interesting. It doesn't make it unreal. You just see it as dependent on clinging. Pretty crazy stuff. But, yeah, if you're interested, again, listen to Rob Barbea talk about it. He's where I learned it from. I just think it's fascinating. And I think more people need to hear this stuff. Because it's crazy. And it's something anyone can touch with practice. Anyone. So, thank you for listening.